It was never about the bar. It was about the window. Neon bleeding down the glass like it had something to confess. I remember sitting there one night, heels kicked off under the stool, lipstick crooked from biting it instead of reapplying it. The jukebox wasn't playing for the room. It was playing for the people who didn't know how to go home yet. That was me. I was not the girl who didn't know better. I was the girl who knew and still chose it. And that is the part people don't forgive. We forgive innocence. We forgive ignorance. We struggle with women who walk into the fire with their eyes open. I chose the late night conversations that tasted like trouble. I chose the man with hands that promised warmth and delivered smoke. I chose to dance with my fate instead of waiting for permission to be safe, because safe felt like silence. Safe felt like shrinking. Safe felt like a life that would never write a song about me. Wrong turns are funny like that. They rarely look like cliffs. They look like doorways with music behind them. They look like someone saying, I see you. They look like intensity that feels like destiny. There was a stretch of my life when I thought strength meant never being caught needing anything, so I drank my nerve. I bit my tongue. I wore my sins like thigh-high boots and walked straight through rooms that would have swallowed softer women whole. But strength without softness becomes armor, and armor gets heavy. I loved saints. I loved thieves. Sometimes they were the same man in different lighting, and every time I told myself I am in control of this. But control is slippery in neon. Neon makes everything glow. Even danger. I remember one night in particular. Rain outside. Desert rain that smells like heat finally breaking. Smoke curling above the tables. A man across from me, eyes full of hunger he disguised as charm. I could see it. I always could. The red flags weren't red. They were velvet. He said he understood fire. He said he liked women who didn't scare easy. I smiled like I didn't scare easy. That was the truth and the lie in the same breath. Because I was not afraid of him. I was afraid of being ordinary. Afraid of quiet. Afraid of a life that didn't pulse. So I kept choosing intensity over peace. When you sing, love tastes best when it's half undone, that is not poetry. That is pattern. That is the addiction to the almost safe. The almost forever, the almost good. Almost keeps you hungry. And when it fell apart, like it always did, I did not beg. I did not repent. I reinvented. But reinvention doesn't erase cost. It just changes the packaging. I have paid in sleep, in pride, in mornings where the sun felt less like hope and more like exposure. Exposure is cruel. It shows you the mascara streak, the text you should not have sent, the look in your own eyes when you know I accepted less than I deserved. There were moments I looked in the mirror and saw the bruise before I saw the beauty. Moments when I knew I had stayed too long. Moments when I had walked past someone else's pain because I was drowning in my own. Eyes that look the other way aren't always cruel. Sometimes they're exhausted. Sometimes they're protecting the last fragile piece of themselves. The dirty blues are not glamorous. They're the sound of realizing you were both the storm and the shelter, the damage and the defense, the spark and the smoke. There was no rescue scene. No dramatic exit with applause. Just a slow awareness that I was tired of dancing with fire that did not know my name. That is where the shift happened. Not when I was shattered. Not when I was judged. Not when I was left. When I was tired. Tired of mistaking chaos for chemistry. Tired of romanticizing pain. Tired of telling myself that destruction meant depth. The slide guitar in this story is not background music. It is memory. It is every night I chose heat over healing. It is every morning I stood back up anyway, because that is the part people miss. I always stood back up. When I say I don't polish pain, I let it show, It's because hiding it never made me holy. It just made me numb. And numb is the most dangerous thing a woman can become. So I stopped pretending. Stopped calling chaos romance. Stopped calling hunger destiny. Stopped pretending that self-destruction was depth. I did not become softer. I became clearer. Clear enough to know I am not my worst decision. Clear enough to know I am not my best one either. Clear enough to say I chose some of it chose me, and all of it taught me. Now when the sun comes up, I'm still me, a little wrecked, a little free, but the wreckage is owned. The freedom is chosen, and the woman at the window, she does not look away anymore. That is the lived truth. Not polished, not perfect, but honest. And honesty does not whisper. It walks into the room, pulls up a chair,